Okay, hi everyone. I'm Avinash Vallarapu. So I'll give a little bit of an introduction. I had been active in blogging until some time ago, and I'm not that too active in blogging now because I'm mostly concentrating on products and product development. So I am the CEO and founder of Cluster, and I've also got a lot of my ex-colleagues over here, and we carry similar roots, or maybe roots from similar companies or same companies. So I'm going to talk today about online migration with Rollback from Oracle and MS SQL to Postgres. So I'm going to give maybe a little bit insights into the migrations and the capabilities of Postgres and industry trends, or some of the things that you most probably are aware of. But I wanted to understand, because I don't need to really go too deep into it if in case I see that everybody are all from Postgres background. So who are actually not from the Postgres community or Postgres background are not someone who is currently using Postgres. So everybody is really using Postgres. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so so I think I mentioned a little bit already about myself. So I also love to see as much as contributions from our team to Postgres. So we have at least written a small patch or created our own extension, and such contributions are definitely more than 50. So we have contributed to more than 50 Postgres tools or extensions. So I myself authored a few books, which I don't suggest to read now. They are outdated. They are for older versions, and I still don't know why people. I still keep getting some kind of reward from those books, and that's interesting. So I'm on LinkedIn, or I'm always happy to connect. So I'll talk today about some of the reasons why people need to migrate, or people want to migrate from commercial databases like Oracle or SQL Server to Postgres, right? So the major reasons is undoubtedly the database license cost. So today in the world of AI, right, when compared to the development of the applications or the scale at which the applications were growing, right, compared to how it was a couple of years ago, and since the evolution of LLMs, and at the same time, I don't know whether everybody is following the trends or not, the MCP server now, and how agentic approaches, tool calling, everything has actually transformed the way people see application development, as well as LLMs have definitely transformed a lot of different things, right? So things are growing at a larger scale. So you really need exponential growth, not only in the user traffic or the application development, but also in ensuring that you have highly scalable databases, and exponentially growing databases is one of the important requirements in any company. However, that comes with some unpredictable license costs at that scale, right? So this is where you want to also avoid those risks of penalties. So look at NASA as an example. A year ago, they published that they overspent, on Oracle license costs. They haven't really noticed that there is enough, they haven't noticed that there were unused Oracle instances, and some of them probably have been, developers who just created and not used them. So there are many such scenarios where there could be penalties, there could be unpredictable costs because of scaling, or something that is not allowing you to take more budget in growing your application, right? So these are some of the challenges that IT leaders and visionaries are looking at right now. So this is where you have to look at migrating to open source and utilizing Postgres like real compatible database for Oracle or even SQL Server. So this allows you to scale definitely high. Again, DB engine ranking trends are pretty popular. I know everybody takes a look at them, how Oracle as well as SQL Server trends are declining, the popularity trends, and compared to how Postgres is always on top, and the community is growing, the usage is growing, customers are growing, right? So there are definitely some of these trends that also speak that over the past few years, Postgres has definitely been one of the top 2 or 3 databases compared majorly on the popularity side of it, right? So DB engine aggregates and calculates the ranking as well as popularity based on a lot of metrics from different sources. You can always take a look at that, but Postgres popularity is definitely undoubtedly, on the top 3 or top 5 always. And this is what even Stack Overflow Developer Service says, that Postgres is one of the most loved database, and that always stays on the top. So if you speak to a developer, 10 years ago, probably they would have said MySQL, and today they say Postgres. So this is undoubtedly a good trend, which also is making organizations think about migrations away from commercial databases. And Postgres is open source, scalable, highly available, it's secure, and it can also allow you to satisfy all the security compliances. It has got advanced features to talk about, because some of the times when we speak to organizations who love Oracle, right? I know Oracle had Amazon had long back shut down, their last Oracle database for the consumer business, and I think there's a trend that we see, and that's probably the thing what made even Oracle support Postgres as one of the engines on OCI platform. I don't know whether everybody follows this or not. So you can create a Postgres database on Oracle OCI, right? So these are some of the interesting reasons, right? Like, you can build a highly available Postgres cluster. You just need to know how. You either need to work with a vendor who can help you do that, or you probably need to see how you can, what are the solutions available in the open source community. And you talk about JSON or vectors or foreign data wrappers, advanced indexing. A lot of features are possible with Postgres. And it's enterprise grade too, right? Because all you need to do is you need to compare and understand, okay, I have this Oracle RAC as well as parallel query, sharding, partitioning, right? Data guard. There are these advanced fancy concepts which may be great some time ago, right? When I say some time ago, maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, especially Oracle RAC, right? Because if you want to use, there are definitely environments which are still building on Oracle RAC and which are still using Oracle RAC, right? But do you really need Oracle RAC, right? A RAC kind of a concept. But even if in case you do, you have multi-master replication that you can still build very carefully in Postgres. And you can have spatial data types. You have graph database features as well. PostGIS is one of the popular extensions of Postgres, and there are people who use Postgres for PostGIS. Remember that, right? And even if you try to compare like backup and recovery features too, right? So you have RMAN, or much more better than RMAN probably if you really love Postgres, right? So you have PG backrest kind of advanced backup solutions, and if you want to have the capabilities to perform encryption, of course, yes. So you do not have the TDE really what Oracle says, but the encryption always, you really need to understand from the application perspective and from the database functionality perspective, right? I think you can always have on-disk encryption and encryption of data in motion. But at the same time, how do you handle this part from the application side is extremely important too, right? But most of the features that you really need in an SQL Server or Oracle database, right, are undoubtedly available with Postgres. You just need to see what it is that is available, right? So a lot of such comparison charts can always be built for Oracle versus SQL Server versus Postgres. So one of the things that we also want to talk about, when I say contributed by Exacluster, some of them are created by us and some of them are undoubtedly the extensions that we have contributed to. So what I'm trying to talk about more than what we contributed in marketing Exacluster is that there are a lot of these extensions that allow you to get similar compatibility as Oracle or SQL Server in Postgres. What that also means is that we can always build that compatibility as required because of the beautiful concept of extensions. So there are many such extensions. So CritCheck is one of the extensions that I hope also some of us take a look at when we get a chance, because that allows us to enforce some of the password and user creation rules in Postgres, right? And I think it's too much on extensions, but ultimately what I wanted to say is that we have a lot of extensions that allow us to get similar features as Oracle as well as SQL Server in Postgres. Let's talk a little bit about challenges in migrating database from Oracle or SQL Server to Postgres. So one of the major challenges that we always hear about are legacy application code, right? So this application had been developed like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and the developers do not exist. So we do not have the business knowledge, domain knowledge, right? And complex business logic, those days were put in as stored procedures or functions inside databases, right? And expertise on Postgres is one of the reasons for failures too. So what happens is, when anybody initiates a migration, right, they initiate it to fail. That is a problem, right? So it's always important to understand how to initiate a migration to Postgres in the right way. And at the same time, it's also problematic to understand what are the trusted extensions that they want to use for compatibility of Oracle or SQL Server in Postgres. And ultimately failing before trying, right? So I know one of the environments where one of the companies where they tried to do a migration, one of the database migrations failed, and they stopped the entire migration process for the remaining databases. But the problem was that they tried it in an incorrect way, right? So you're really not trying unless you really try. So you really need to try the best. You need to work with the right people to do that too, right? So some of these challenges always, when I speak to leaders as well as other, ex-colleagues and people, I notice that failed migrations have been one of the reasons for, organizations not really looking forward for migration. So how to simplify migrations, right? So again, while I always feel a little bit, I try to keep marketing as low as possible, as least as possible. But Hexarocket is one of the beautiful solutions that we have developed, right? And I wanted to also announce that we have Hexarocket 3.0, which now supports migrations within SQL Server, within Oracle, within Postgres, and also from Oracle to Postgres, SQL Server to Postgres, and even for rollback capabilities from Postgres to Oracle and Postgres to SQL Server. So Aura to PG is one of the migration tools or open source migration projects that you would have heard about. So it was authored by our CTO, Jill Starrold, and we have done a lot of contributions. I've done some contributions too. However, I understand that the lack of enabling it to have online migration capability has always been a bigger challenge. I know this in the case when even Google and Microsoft had adopted Aura to PG as the backbone for their schema migrations. You can still do that, right? You can still use Aura to PG for schema migrations. That's absolutely possible. But there should be something more, something better for today's world. And that is why we created Hexarocket, to completely simplify that end-to-end migration capability. So I'll go through the demo of Hexarocket too, but what I wanted to say is that in any migration, the core features that anybody wants to expect or see are schema migration, data migration, and CDC, right? So you want to migrate the data online. What I mean by online is you do not want to have a lot of downtime for your application. And at the same time, you would also want to see how you can seamlessly migrate the schema. I wouldn't say that it's always 100% seamless, right? But something better than what all the tools until today have done, right? So if in case there is a complex schema and some of the tools have achieved 30 or 40%, what is it that can allow us to go up to 80% or 90%, right? So what is the approach in the current world? So that is what we wanted to leverage. And data migration, of course, there are many solutions that have solved data migration. There are several ways to do data migration, but it's just that we have packaged all of it to make a simple solution for migrations. But one of the interesting things which I want to spend time is about our model, right? So we have been using ChatGPT or several other models, right? Now everybody can talk about too many other types of models. So these large language models are all trained on large corpus of data, right? So they're not trained for a specific domain. When they're not trained for a specific domain, they can hallucinate, right? So it's always important to give it the right instructions to do the right task. So that involves knowledge base, of course, but at the same time, if these models are trained for that specific domain, right, then the accuracy as well as accuracy can definitely be improved, and the hallucinations can be reduced. So this is what we have done. So what we have done was we have trained a domain-specific language model, right? So we have leveraged 8 months of effort in generating a lot of training data set, not the customer's data set, but we have used all our experience as well as a lot of knowledge base across the world, but we have trained our own language model, which can be better and accurate and understands the conversion capabilities from Oracle PLSQL as well as SQL Server T-SQL to Postgres, right? At the same time, every day we keep learning new and new challenges, right? We cannot always continuously train our model every day, right? So this is where we have also got a complex workflow, which is going to influence the model's responsiveness, right? So to improve that responsiveness, we have definitely got a complex workflow, which also not only validates and makes sure that the newly learned knowledge is embedded in the workflow, right? It also ensures that it validates and gives that validation score. So I know there are a lot of cloud vendors as well as other companies who are trying to do the same, right? But I think this is a nice competition, as well as I think that is what the learnings from other vendors as well as everybody in the world always is going to help any tool become better and better, and ultimately simplify the improve the user experience, right? So in a nutshell, before I go to the demo of it, right, and show you how it works, so I wanted to say that it offers schema migration, data migration, as well as CDC. So it's a small language model trained for Oracle PLSQL as well as T-SQL to PostgreSQL PG-SQL conversions. At the same time, if in case you do not want to deploy our model, right, which technically costs you $1.30 to host it on an AWS GPU instance per hour, and if you host it for 4 hours or 10 hours, like definitely under $50 or $100, you would be able to see up to 80% or even 90%, depending on the complexity of conversions automatically done, right? But at the same time, if you do not want to use our model, or if you want to have a farm of models actually talking to each other, so I'm not sure how many of us heard about LLM as a judge, but so if you want to use a concept of having some more custom models or your local models added, yes, you do have the opportunity to come up with your own model or a public LLM, and as long as you got enough guardrails put in place to avoid sending all your business logic. While you have a lot of terms and conditions from all of these public LLM providers that they don't train your data, and your data is not really used for any other purposes, right? So you can go ahead and use a model of your choice. It supports complex transformations and parallel data migration. Data migration is a solved problem. Everybody have done it, and we definitely have incorporated. That's not too big of a thing for any environment. CDC is something that we are always proud of, right? So we wanted to simplify the online migration capability. So we support customers from replicating live from Oracle to Postgres, as well as Postgres to Oracle for or even SQL Server for rollback capabilities. Now I want to go ahead and just show a quick demo on how HexaRocket works as a solution, right? So similar to any other tool. So ultimately, all the people who have used HexaRocket have mentioned that it's very easy to use, and that is what we wanted to always achieve, right? How can we build something which can do a task in the most easiest possible way, right? Which is majorly the migration task. So similar to most of the existing solutions, you can add a connection. After adding a connection, you can test the connection. So here I've added Oracle as well as Postgres connections. And then all you need to do is just go ahead and create a migration project. So I'll show you one of the just completed migration project, right? So you will select the objects, you will add transformations, right? And once you choose it, objects and transformations, you see whether the data types are mapped accurately. You will have an option to update the target data types, right? If in case, let's say you have char of 1 in Oracle, and because until Oracle 19c, Boolean data type was not supported, you want to use Boolean in Postgres for some of the columns. So you want to map that to Boolean, right? So you can make those changes. And then you can go ahead and use AI. Because of network issue, I cannot use the LLM service now, but you would be able to add your model, okay? So you can add either the locally added Helm, which is our model, or you can add your public LLM or your own model. And then you would be able to migrate the schema, right? So once the schema is migrated, you have the option to edit the converted schema, if it's a function or a procedure, or even if in case it's a table, whichever you want. And then you would go ahead and do the data migration by configuring the parallel workers and the chunk sizes for the data, and that's it. So you'll be able to see the data migrated, right? So it'll show you how much of data is migrated in what time. If you want to go ahead and restart the migration of a failed table, you have the option to truncate and restart, stop it in between, right? So ultimately, we wanted to give that flexibility of not stopping the entire project, dropping the entire project, rerunning the entire project, right? If in case you want to make some changes or transformations, you should be able to do that for a failed table from here, even if that's already completed or if that's failed, right? And it will continue the replication for those tables, right? For example, here, I've just replicated only one of these tables, generated some changes, and you see the changes replicating live. So you have the options to pause and resume as well, right? So ultimately, we wanted to see how we can simplify the entire migration process. So there are two solutions as of now, right? Either the open source way of doing it or the commercial way of doing it. With the open source way of doing it, you can go ahead and build something or do it for the customer using Order2PG and Debezium-like replication solutions for the purpose of CDC. And the commercial way of doing it, definitely there are many other solutions too, so Exarocket is one among them. The only thing that I wanted to emphasize and talk about in this demo or in this talk is that the use of AI. How did we use AI to solve one of the problem statements, which is simplifying the conversions from one language to another language, these transformations, and how we are ensuring that we put the best knowledge as well as the right practices in place to build something which is specifically trained for that domain, and a complex workflow which is always validating and ensuring that the migration is almost accurate for the customer, reducing the amount of time of migration, because it is extremely important in today's world to make a switch from a commercial database to an open source database as simple and seamless as possible. Gone are the days where it takes an year or two, right? So yeah, so this is what I wanted to say. Now I'm happy to take questions, and it could be anything on migrations if I cannot answer, yes.
So for this LLM, did we incorporate the RAG features here to do the transformation from Vallarapu to PG? Or what? How did you do the engineering?
RAG is one of the pieces, but RAG is, I would say, only like probably 2% to 3%. So it has got that knowledge base, which always is, which always it exists under the hood, but there is a complex workflow in it, and there are a lot of rules, right? So it's all driven by those rules. So it again abstracts, it gets to that abstraction and extracts the relevant, I would say, you can look at it from the parse tree perspective, right? It parses the source object, and then the workflow initiates, and then the workflow understands what are the rules that it has got. And if in case there is something that it found for which the workflow does not have the solution, then it connects with the knowledge base and implements what you said as RAG. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mean to say 100% of the rules have covered? We have covered?
No. No, not always. So this is definitely, so I do not want to always say that we have covered 100%. But one of the things that I would always want to say is that we had, because of the knowledge base, the kind of knowledge base that we have used and the issues in migrations that we have seen, in the past couple of decades, right? So we have that wealth of information where all such migration issues have been tracked and we analyzed. I'm pretty much sure that we have covered more than 80% of the cases, but it could be even less than 50% too. But based on what we have seen with customers, right, until now it's more than 80% success ratio that we have seen. Because,
Typically, how long the process is taking schema conversion and data migration for, let's say, 100 GB database with hundreds of procedures?
Yeah, so data is one of the things which is, if in case you talk about 100 GB, there are scenarios where it can be migrated within 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the amount of parallel workers and the memory we give to that instance, right? And the source and target instance capabilities and the network bandwidth. So 30 minutes to an hour is a fair time for 100 GB data, right? Could be lesser too. And then talking about schema migration, so for us, I think around the 200 functions and stored procedures takes around 1 to 2 hours. With Aura2PG probably it takes like 5 minutes, because what Aura2PG is doing is find and replace. It's ultimately applying regular expressions, and so if it found a word, it says I translate it, to something else, or it leaves comments, and that's what SCT also does almost. But AWS is coming up with much more better approach to probably than SCT. Than what SCT did in the past, right? So it takes a couple of hours. Yeah.
How does the tool handle constraints when we have indexes or we have unique constraints or constraints? How does the tool handle that when it's migrating data?
Absolutely. So,
you mind repeating the question so that gets registered?
Absolutely. So the question was about how constraints can be handled or indexes can be handled. So yes, so that is one of the solved problems by Aura2PG also. So what we also promote and talk about HexaRocket is that it's Aura2PG++. So in case you would have heard about Aura2PG as a solution that had handled constraints or indexes in the past, and HexaRocket initially handled constraints and indexes in the beginning itself. So it extracts that information from the source and presents you that information on the screen. So you would be able to even customize and modify the constraint behaviors as well, right? But it supports automatically, yes.
So at one time we can migrate one database only, right? Not the entire cluster.
If it's so you're talking about Oracle container database with multiple pluggable databases in it, is that correct?
And you talk about the projects that we need to create in order to migration.
Yeah, so it all depends on the capacity where your HexaRocket is deployed. So you can actually go ahead and migrate multiple databases, or you can create n number of tasks at the same time. So it depends on the license. But what I wanted to say is you can create a project, let the migration happen for all the tables and CDC continue, and you can create another project. But you want to see how much number of cores that you want to allocate to the workers. So if you have a server with 100 CPUs and 200 GB data, and you're allocating only 10 CPUs for the first project, and your CPU utilization is lesser, and you limited the memory to a certain capacity for each parallel worker. So you have those configuration settings over here. So you will be able to choose how much memory that you want to allocate for each of these parallel workers, right? So it automatically calculates the chunk sizes and populates the chunk sizes and fetch sizes accordingly. So it tries to restrict itself to that amount of memory, right? So the question was majorly about how if we can do more migrations at the same time using the same tool, and the answer is yes. So with all of these configurations in hand, and at the same time, even when you're migrating, you notice that one of the table is migrating so slow. You want to increase the chunk size and then see how fast it is coming up. And when it's migrating, you'll also see the progress percentage. So you'll be able to see how fast it's progressing. You can stop it, you can truncate and restart it. So once you have everything in place, after looking at the monitor center and looking at how much load this entire migration is taking, I think you should be able to initiate another task.
The CDs is being handled by the triggers or the values?
No, not triggers. No. So I think symmetric DS was one of the solutions which used triggers in order to perform the CDC using triggers. But I don't think that customers would always accept the trigger-based approach. There could be exceptions where scenarios involving denormalization and normalization requiring us putting some kind of triggers. But this does not rely on triggers. It relies on the information captured in reader logs or transaction logs and extracting the information from them.
The data validation started.
So one of the things that it is doing is internally, it is actually performing the data validation and getting to that completed state now in this version. However, I think we have got familiar with AWS DMS or other tools where it was also showing completed and validated successfully, right? So then we got that push to at least put that status over there, but we are trying to say that so when it says completed, so you have flag when you are migrating in the configuration to enable validation or disable validation. So you also can do full validation or even row count validation only, or you have other option which is the validation of sample rows, right? Like it just go ahead and takes a sample of rows and then validates just sample percentage. You say validate 10%, validate 20%, but that's at the entire project level. So we will, in the future releases, we'll come up with a table level validation percentage approach. But yeah, I wish you could change that status and say completed/validated.
So we have any pre or post migration reports sort of thing so that we get confidence, right? So how many of it will be converted and is the migration success?
Correct. So talking about the pre and post migration report, so we have another standalone application for assessments. Okay, and the same standalone application can actually be used now for post validation of the schema, right? So, but we haven't incorporated that to the tool itself. But if there is a customer looking to migrate and they want to see how much of it can actually be accomplished by Rocket, now it is possible. It is not the same as Oracle PG schema assessment report, but it's little beyond that.
Any pre-access is needed, like before we do the migration, like segregating the tasks, or okay, these are the tables who is having the block, or these are not small tables. Such kind of segregation is needed, or directly we can choose mapping.
So CTechnically, that's a good question. So now for data migration as well as CDC as well as all the other tasks, it actually supports everything automatically. What I mean is, if in case it has got a blob, right? So there is a special way of handling the blob, as you know. So that is handled automatically, as well as if in case you have a custom type, or you also have nested tables, or you also have array types, table type, like array of definite length and array of indefinite length, which is table of, you have a different syntax in Oracle. So all of that is automatically supported during data migration and CDC. It reads the mapping that we have done for columns and automatically does that internally. So
no need to set any parameters.
No need to set any parameters. No need to set any parameters.
On the validation front, so I have a strong opinion that we will never be able to do a 100% validation of what we have Oracle versus what we're going to be having on Postgres, or whenever we are talking about CDCs.
Correct.
So what is the direction that you as a migration expert, Sai can talk about it, Ashwini, some of our colleagues from AWS can talk, right? What is the approach or the direction that we should be taking, right, to get give the confidence to customer as a, hey, you've got 1 million rows here, and then you've got 1 million rows in Postgres.
Correct.
Right? The count is really easy for us, right? But when you go ahead and say, probably one of the things is to construct a checksum of these, a number of rows on Postgres and then Oracle. That's one way, right? So what is the direction that you guys take? Probably in validating and giving it to the customer.
Absolutely. So this is one of the things, right? So when you have full load, yeah, you can always stop applying the CDC changes, and you can use the same snapshot from the source, get the records, validate the full load migrated data, right? But when you are when you actually have CDC data, it is definitely difficult for the purpose of migration. One of the things that traditionally everybody followed, most of them have followed, is even after CDCs come, when the replication starts, right? For example, full load and validation completed and CDC starts, right? So changes are getting replicated. They take a downtime, right? And now they go ahead and validate using custom scripts. But it's not exactly that you have been validating only the changes that have been replicated since the last full load. So this is where we have come up with one of the algorithms, right? So which I can talk in a high level, right? It's okay if somebody wants to use, but so majorly what we wanted to do was, so we were capturing some of the key information from the tables, which allow us to identify specifically the row. And we are using one of the techniques using which we get the list of those records that have been changed and modified since the last full load, because we are maintaining that store internally, right? And a periodic validation of those rows happens, and it also applies deduplication internally. So this is what we have achieved for the purpose of CDC data validation. So it internally applies that deduplication, and it goes and validates those specific records. So during this time, when the replication is not intact, absolutely there is a way to again see failures. So this is where it is actually capturing those failures, because what happens is, again, when it's going and selecting those newly populated rows, right, from source and Oracle, the state of that would have been already modified on Oracle, and it has not yet been applied on Postgres. So the validation failure still happens. So this is where it's again tracking, and what it is actually doing is, when you go ahead and terminate a migration project, it is actually internally, what it means is that your application has stopped writing changes to your source, okay? And then it checks if there are any more pending rows to be replicated. And for all those failed records, it is doing another validation and then saying successful. The completed green appears when even that is successful, right? So for CDC. So when you terminate, after terminating, you see a failure. So this is one of the things that we have solved, but it is one of the most trickiest thing. It's not always possible if in case we are using different tools. CDC data, validating CDC data is one of the most trickiest as well as the toughest things to do. Yeah. Good. I was not keeping a track of my time, but
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good. Another 5 minutes.
sure, great.
Any other questions?
Great.
Just one question.
Yeah, sure.
Able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned that the schema conversion is done through the LLM, right? So how good or how accurate is the schema conversion through the model, right? Because schema, like when we talk about, right, that holds all the business logic. So doing that is one of the complex jobs within the migration, right? Or maybe like if we talk about the data type mapping as well, right? So that also is very I would say that most critical part, right?
Absolutely.
Because if the data type is incorrect again, you will get a lot of problems. So how the LLM, is there a way in where we identify such kind of issues or maybe highlight those things?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. I think everybody heard that question, right?
Yes.
How can we say that the migration is accurate, especially when the are using LLMs. Okay, so majorly when we are using LLMs, for example, almost every day people nowadays use ChatGPT or some of those things that support us with our daily tasks, right? So when we ask a question, we generally go ahead and ask a question, write me a script to do this task, or help me draft some document, and we then review it. Okay, so ultimately it's all about our instructions. Okay, so what it means is, as long as ChatGPT is able to understand your instruction well, it's able to do the task. And then you go ahead and tell ChatGPT, hey, this is the step where you did not follow my instruction correctly, right? So please change it. Now ChatGPT returns back and says, yeah, okay, I'm fixing myself. I'm giving you the answer. And then you're again asking ChatGPT itself to validate and say, okay, give me a score of my instructions versus your response, and let me know whether you have followed all my instructions. And then it gives you a score, right? So ultimately, you are putting some amount of effort in making the LLM do what you want. So this is what our workflow also does. But it doesn't mean that it completely relies on asking some LLM, right? So this is where the concept of domain-specific language models start, right? So today we rely on such LLMs, and even organizations are trying to see how they can incorporate these language models, domain-specific language models, right, into their organization for simplifying. Not only look at customer support using these language models. I don't know whether you're following this product called Vappy, for example, right, where they have achieved less than 500 milliseconds of response time in speech to text to, or text to speech. So basically, you can call a customer care and the AI is answering and continuing the conversation even after 30 minutes, right? So why are customer cares able to implement LLMs behind their voice agents, right? So this is because of how you are making the model do the right thing. So we have got that complex workflow in place, which is actually, making sure that it is not only relying on the language model which is trained for the purpose of our conversions with all of the training data, right? Because it only knows Oracle PL SQL, and it only knows PostgreSQL SQL, and it only knows TSQL. It does not know Python, as an example, right? So at the same time, it knows how to take the instructions from this workflow better, right? And it knows how to get influenced by the workflow. So we have taken such practices with which in all our analysis, I think, but this will be the way to go also, as you see. Yeah. So we try to put those practices in place to make sure that the model takes the right decision, right? So yeah.
Do you have any free version where you can try this?
Yeah. So I can always give the free versions to friends, but it's absolutely possible. Absolutely. So we will be able to give trial versions. I'm always happy to just message on LinkedIn. We'll be able to give you the trial versions. So we were waiting for 3.0 version to give those trial versions to all our friends. So now that the 3.0 is released, we are good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for this. On LLM usage, we currently are doing schema conversion and few other things. What is that which you are not able to do, or which is in your roadmap which you want to do using LLM?
Okay, that's a nice question. There is definitely something that I want to do.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah. So the question is, what is it that you have achieved with LLMs so far, right? And what is it that you have not achieved and want to achieve, right? I know, while again that sounds as equivalent to Elon Musk probably saying, living in Mars, but what I want to say is, I want to see how Hexarocket can talk to people and do the task, right? So yeah, that's as simple as what I would say. But and we are on that. So I really want to see how Hexarocket is not a tool driven by an expert, but how it can become an expert guiding anybody do the migration. Yeah.
And like we can also integrate our customized models, right? with
Yes,
integrations,
correct.
Like specific tasks.
Correct. Yes.
Can we offload our relational data to NoSQL kind of data?
So we currently support Oracle, Postgres, and MySQL. Oracle, Postgres, and SQL Server, MS SQL. But there is a roadmap for that.
Do you see any performance issues because of LLM code? Maybe functionality may match. Any performance issues you see?
Yes. So there can always be performance issues in conversions, be it with Oracle PG or also with LLM code conversions. Ultimately, what we want to say at this moment is that the huge amount of person days or man work or women work involved in this effort, right? I would say that is being reduced, and over a period of time that gets much more optimized. So we will also be putting in place practices. There is also something in roadmap for that, for performance optimization.
Is this also used for homogeneous migration? You talked about like
Correct.
A to B.
So interestingly, we have done an Oracle to Oracle migration using Rocket, and they are using now for live replication from Oracle to Oracle. So it supports Oracle to Oracle data migration as well as replication, Postgres to Postgres, and SQL Server to SQL Server, and even Postgres to Oracle, which I don't want to say, but if you want to do replication only to satisfy a customer or a user that, okay, I migrate from Oracle to Postgres, but I also need that replication from Postgres to Oracle at least for 2 to 5 days in case I want to switch back, I can switch, fix, and come back later. Yeah, you can do that.
All right, in the interest of time, we should be around for the next couple of hours. Let's just break and get out and get some snacks for ourselves. Please help yourselves. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Hari and team.